Welcome to the Healers Café, the #1 show for medical practitioners and holistic healers to have heart to heart conversations about their day to day lives while sharing their expertise for improving your health and wellness. Welcome to the Healers Cafe. And today I have with me Dr. Howard Walsdorf, otherwise known as Dr. W. And he's a veteran holistic chiropractor and a natural healer, author, speaker, and expert in the ancient wisdom of the 4 elements and natural living. His latest book, Fire, Air, Water, and Earth, apply an ancient wisdom to your life, and it aims to revitalize modern society by introducing a compelling new holistic paradigm for healthier living and healing, integrating the principles embodied by the 4 elements, which are fire, air, water, and earth. So welcome. And of course, I'm going to ask you right away. So is that like
Yeah.
Chinese medicine? Is this the ancient principles applied to the new, or are we talking about something else?
Well, that's a good question, and it's good to. I like getting started that way, Dr. B. A lot of people don't realize that Western civilization is based upon this ancient knowledge of the 4 elements: fire, air, water, earth, as you did say there. And it's nice to know that nature's fire is the sun, just so you people out there can appreciate it. So these 4 elements of nature, which the ancients spoke about and revered and had an intuitive sense that they represented something higher, that they represent a kind of a cosmos spanning set of principles, cardinal principles that are meant to be in balance. And so the 4 element way that I'm trying to bring forward, speaks to how we can use that ancient insight that is uh, a part of the Western way of uh, how civilization began, and it's a counter in a lot of ways to the in Chinese medicine. You have a whole different paradigm that they were built upon, and we seem to give more respect and honor to the 5 elements of
Mm,
Chinese medicine
right.
with acupuncture and the like. And I don't think we give enough reverence and respect to what's at the core of Western medicine. And truly, at the core of Western medicine are the 4 elements. Hippocrates, the father of medicine, was clearly a 4 element physician. I mean, that's just, everybody would know that if you look it up, if you understand what was around there. So for 4,000 years, the 4 elements, up until like 200 years ago, out of all the millennial eras of humankind, the 4 elements are really been key to understanding uh, for the Western mind how the universe worked and how we're meant to live a more balanced life. So I'm here to bring that back. I'm sorry I got a little long-winded on that, but
No, that's well, I was going to say, so why not metal?
okay, there you have the Chinese system of
Yeah,
metal and you have wood.
yeah,
Fair
like
questions.
yeah, and
And
and what makes it like what's the history of metal in that sense? Did it not, or did
well,
it?
well, well, I think it's worth backing up a little bit if I could,
Okay, go
and
ahead.
and
Absolutely.
uh, and to realize that the elements don't stop at 4, in my way of thinking. So what I've and I don't want to get too lost in the weeds here because I want to give people some practical things to do.
Perfect.
Uh, but to real briefly here, when you fracture the oneness of the cosmos into 2 parts, you get the yin yang principles of the cosmos. Yin and yang, big and small, spiritual, material. From this holistic model, from a metaphysical perspective, that oneness, when you fracture it, uh, with those 2 parts, for yin yang principles of big and small, spirit and matter, they're going in opposite directions. And for a productive universe, they have to come together. And that's what you know uh, threeness is all about. But that doesn't get us where we want to go, because the 4th element, Earth, you fracture that oneness into 4 parts, and you get the 4 elements: fire, air, water, and earth, as principles. I'm getting a little metaphysical here, but it's useful to know it.
Yeah,
When
yeah.
those when the oneness gets fractured into 4 parts to allow a physical, diverse world, which is what we have right around us, uh, you get these four principles that uphold it. You get the oneness principle, you get the two-ness principle, yin yang, that manifests as air. You got the principle of interconnectedness, that triangle of balance, of interconnectedness that we all want so much in our life, balance. That's the water principle, for example. And then we need sturdiness, we need physicality, we need to accomplish things, like the earth element. So I don't know if that, I'm trying to do it really fast for you, but but then the point is that it doesn't stop there. To be
Right.
fair, you can fracture that oneness to five parts, and that's where you get the Chinese five elements: wood
Mhm.
and metal. In a sense, wood is the fifth element. It
Right.
comes
Right. True.
as the fifth element is time. When you fracture the oneness into five parts, you get the pentagram, and you can't draw a pentagram without keeping wanting to go on and on. That's what
Mhm.
movement or time is, that fifth principle. So I don't want to get too stuck there, but the
No,
point
no.
is it doesn't stop with four or five
Yeah.
or beyond. Uh, but the point I want to get to is the practical application of the four elements, because I think that all these principles are kind of mumbo jumbo if they don't have a practical use in our lives. And that's over my 40 years as a holistic chiropractor here in Syracuse, New York. I've been striving to help my patients by drawing these principles into the life of helping them to heal, helping them to understand what they can do to help themselves, how I can align their bones. The earth of the body are the bones. Does that make sense? So the
Yep.
earth of
Yep.
the body. So this is, really practical things in the sense that the earth of your body are your bones. So you want your bones to be aligned. The fire of the body is the nervous system, the brain up top. and,
Mhm.
and, and those bones of earth, even though all our bones are the earth within ourselves, what I like my patients to appreciate is that in this holistic paradigm, this pattern of the four elements keeps repeating. So, for
Mhm.
example, the earth of the body of the bones in general. Can you see that within your skeletal system, the feet have more of that bone on them, more earth? They're at the bottom. There's more density of bone. Does that make sense to you? Like that the
Mhm.
earth is even stronger at the foot. Even
Right.
within the feet, it's strongest in the heel. That's what
Mhm.
you engage the ground with, the heel.
Right.
So the back side of the feet, the back side of the body with the spine, your shoulder blades, drawing your arms back. The earth side of your body is the back side. So good posture, which is what we all want. So many patients come to me with bad posture, not
Mhm.
but just by making them aware that bad posture, you collapse forward like this. We know intuitively that good posture, we bring ourselves back, that
Mhm.
earth side, that back side. So by giving it a context, I find that people enjoy being challenged to do better because they can feel like, oh, earth, sturdiness. Dr. W tells me to feel my heels more, bring myself back, and they just feel sturdier. And I believe that we become sturdier as an individual, not
Mhm.
just physically aligned better, but today I don't think we're sturdy enough because we're doing all this stuff forward and the like.
Mhm.
And I even go further, if I could, is as a woman, as yourself, you're kind of aware of osteoporosis, right?
Mhm.
And that's a weakness of that earth element within you, your bones, right? And
Mhm.
so what studies show is the best remedy or antidote for osteoporosis is walking. Not so much working out at a gym or doing other
Right.
things, but by walking. What walking does is you heel strike, and it's what happens when you heel strike is an electrical current called a piezo electrical current, very small direct current in the microamps, goes up your bones and stimulates your osteoblasts to produce
Mhm.
more bone. So the poetic way that this four-element way of thinking, and I suggest that it's a productive way of approaching things. It's scientific, but it's also poetic and spiritual. This four-element
Mhm.
way of thinking is that when the earth within you, i.e., your bones, engage the greater earth below you, this
Mhm.
earth force or energy comes through into you and makes your own earth stronger, your own bones stronger,
Right.
sturdier. And I believe not only your bones, but even yourself, your mind, your spirit, sturdier. And I think we're all less sturdy than we used to be, partly
Mhm.
because this is where I'm a little not controversial, but a little challenging to us today is that so many of us wear soft shoes, sneakers,
Right.
Crocs, which I'm totally against Crocs, sorry out there, because they're all this soft, gooey stuff in a
Yeah.
sense. And it's almost as if we're doing an experiment on ourselves. As little as we walk today, we put this soft stuff there to even insulate us even further from drawing in that earth principle, as I call it, or force energy that makes that earth element within us, our bones and our sturdiness quotient, less
Mhm.
effective. There's a
Mm.
lot I said there, wasn't it?
No, no, but it's great. But do you think it's also you mentioned the piezoelectric effect
Yeah,
for the bone, which allows the osteoblastic activity, so the bones start
yeah,
um,
getting
thing.
stronger.
But do you think there's anything to the electric effect, electrons coming in from Earth, the fact that if you do go barefoot, and there's often a remedy if you travel or you're jet lagged to, walk on
Ground yourself.
grass,
Yeah.
ground yourself. I
The
would think
same
that,
idea there. So, it's a
uh,
different, that might not involve the piezo currents as much as just other earthy
yeah,
forces, if you will.
maybe
But probably,
the ether,
yeah,
maybe
or just, it could be some
the
type of
electric body.
electric. It's probably is electrical in some way. It might not be piezoelectric.
Uh,
It's something there, I'm sure.
Right.
Uh, Being barefoot, you're grounding out something that might, Earth is that grounding, uh, part of our
Yeah.
being.
So if that's Earth, then what's water, and how do you explain that to people?
Sure, sure. Okay, water, to appreciate water is I say, imagine yourself as an amoeba in the oceans.
Mhm,
Even, billions of years ago and even today, they got most of their nutrients by water coming in, bringing in their little nutrient energies, particles, whatever. Life got bigger and it needed a digestive system to break it down. Larger things need a canal to
mhm,
push these things through the body. It needed uh, a heart to pump
mhm,
the fluid in the canals. It needed an immune system to keep those canals clean. It needed a urinary tract to expel the point I'm making is that, and then life came on land and it needed lungs to bring oxygen in that was dissolved in the waters. My point here is that, all your organs, all your visceral organs are an embellishment
mhm.
of that water principle that's
Right.
all about nourishing the nourishing energies that the body needs. So water is the blood, but it's the blood, it's the visceral system, and then it's the food that you take in. So, with in the poetic way that I like to say, there's oftentimes a threeness to this third element, water. There really is a one, two, three, four. I don't want to get too metaphysical, and it's not that important to appreciate. But here I want to just say that you have, you have food, you got your visceral organs, and you got blood. That's sort of a triad of the water element of your body, or I'm
Mhm,
saying you need food, nutrition, food. You need your digestive system to break it down, and you have blood distribute it. So that's
mhm.
that's one
Right.
way of
And
appreciating water.
fascia, in that case, it
I'm
fits in.
sorry,
Fascia,
fascia.
yeah, is really like what you're saying, the visceral organs, but it also is what
Well,
and feeds, right? Like,
let me say this though: is I just talked about water in a kind of a four-element way, in the sense of the primal tissues of the body. But
right.
let me say this: is that the uh, fascia is a connective tissue,
Mhm,
and so from a muscular skeletal system way of perspective, is water uh, is your ligaments and your connective tissue from a from another perspective. In this
right.
holistic schematics, these
Yeah,
patterns, these principles keep finding places to show up. Does that make sense to you, there,
yeah, yeah,
Doctor? Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah.
So I don't know if that. So fascia is part of that water element, and it's interconnective. Again, water is the principle of interconnectedness, and that's what ligaments do. They
Mm,
interconnect bones, muscles. They wrap things to connect the parts of a muscle, things
mhm,
like that, organ,
mhm.
right? So
Yeah,
that's kind of
exactly.
fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, what are we missing now? Air. How about we?
Air. Okay, so air. Now
Yeah.
to appreciate air in this mumbo jumbo of metaphysics that really does have a physical reality, I still will put forward continuously. it hasn't failed me yet over 40 years, this holistic four element way of approaching things. Every day I get some insight as I work it through with some four element yoga. So I've even created a four element yoga that's based upon this, that you
Mhm,
can engage these principles and draw them into you to
mhm,
make you, if you want, earth sturdy, to make
mhm.
yourself water, bring nourishing tides of water into different organs, different tissues of the body. And then number
What
two,
would your life be like if you were pain free? If you were one of the millions who suffer from chronic pain, the thought of just one day without it may seem impossible. This is often because conventional medicine tends to fall short in the treatment of pain, opting to prescribe pills or recommend surgery rather than getting to the root cause of the problem. But if you are suffering with emotional or physical pain, there is hope. Join the founder and CEO of Bowen College, Manon Bolliger, live online for your body-mind reboot. Learn how to listen to your symptoms and get to the root cause of your pain. Plus, be trained in basic Bowen therapy moves so that you can reboot your body for optimal health. You don't have to live in pain. You can heal. Stop the pain pill cycle by visiting www.yourbodymindreboot.com to learn more and to register.
two up top, fire, air. Uh, Air is, think of air as number two. Think of two as the line. The geometry of two is a line.
Mhm.
Just like we kind of suggested that the four is the right angles, that locking. So four, uh, it, it's very useful in understanding the earth element and the power of it is appreciating the right angle. But we're going to digress from there and go back to two. So the geometry of two is a line, and what you have is those arrows that go in opposite directions.
Mhm.
And we don't appreciate that what's between those two arrows is space, ever expanding space. In a very, that might be the way space got created. It might have,
Mhm.
it might be a good metaphor, a really metaphysical way that it happened. So my
Mhm.
point is that air is an embodiment of that air, of that, or space is an embodiment of that air principle of two-ness. So what nature does is it takes that space and we call it air. So air is the spaciousness that comes out of two. Now, the point that we want to get to here is how do we move through that air element is through our muscles. Muscles are what gives us the elbow room, the muscular robustness that moves us through air. I don't know if you followed that one, but so air is so muscles that move us through space uh, that empower us are the embodiment of air. I don't. I could do a better job explaining it other times, but that was the
No,
best I
no,
could.
but I can see, often when people come in for treatment, right? I mean, you do like chiropractic, holistic way,
Mhm.
big context. I don't know if you've heard about Bowen therapy. It's Bowen. So it's
Yeah,
a fascial therapy,
right, fascia. Yeah,
which is what I teach at Bowen College as well.
cool.
But what's interesting there is we often say that, when energy is stuck, right?
Yeah,
Often it's stuck in the fascia or in the muscles, right?
okay.
And then I use the analogy, well, there's no flow, so the blood's not getting, so the air is not clearing through. There's nothing to bring about the circulation. And the best thing to do when there's that type of just pain or thing is to move through it, right?
Yes. So to move,
Yeah.
that's the
So
key
I
element there is to move.
exactly.
Right.
Then that's what I'm hearing from, the way you're.
Yeah, and so you might get as you hear this, so you might get something out of this old codger that I am right now, kind of, is because I really have for 40 years, I've been, my new book is called something like, Sacred Architecture,
Mm,
uh, and putting these principles into uh, helping yourself to heal. I don't remember the subtitle of it, but anyhow, uh, but I've created a sacred architecture to help understand the human body
yeah,
that
yeah.
someone like yourself and might appreciate because it might give you a new perspective how to appreciate muscles by
Right.
seeing them as this air principle that and air wants to rise. So nature helps us to understand how these principles work within us. So water, uh, water's that flowing side to side motion of a river. It goes from the side to side, and so with four element yoga, which is how I help these principles to get translated into a different region. So I integrate the chakras, the 7 chakras, and I suggest there's
Right.
even 7 regions. So that in this sacred architecture, I use these 7 regions, and I have these exercise that to help move these principles. So I wanted to bring earth energies into my thoracic heart region, for example. I'd go, remember I said the earth was the backside. So I would give people exercise to go, 1, 2, 3, 4, things like that. So that brings that. Now there you're involving air, you're involving muscles, that air element. And again, air gives you self-empowerment. It gives you chi. I believe that chi for Chinese medicine, I think of chi more and more as elbow room, that every cell, every organ, every region of the body needs that robust elbow room chi to keep it invigorated. So it's another whole level of resiliency. You have nutritional resiliency, you got
Right.
structural resiliency toward the backside. Earth helps every region of the body to be supported properly, which is a good resiliency building thing for every region of the body. Does that make sense? As
Sure.
nutritional support, which is why walking is so useful as well, because it pumps movement right, left, right, left. We don't hop, we go right.
Right.
So that's that water principle, side to side, the x-axis, the y-axis of air lifting up, which is what nature shows us what air does. It's that uplift, buoyancy. In a
Right.
psychological way, air is the hopeful buoyancy of the human condition. Water is more the sentiments, the emotions, things
Mhm.
like that. But that's how it manifests on, the mind and the spirit.
Right.
But
But it's interesting though, when you were talking about earth too, that it strengthens the bones, but the posture also will,
well, that's because you bring muscles that
right.
empower that those are earth muscles, if you will. If you're muscles that bring you back, I would define as earth muscles.
Yeah.
Muscles that kind of bring a buoyancy of your arms up would be maybe an
But
air
yeah,
muscle.
and you're also bringing in breath, right?
Absolutely, breath is so important.
Which is so important. So if you have the right posture, breathing is a non-issue, right? I mean,
Yeah,
think about
yeah.
it anyways, but if you're in the right posture, it's I would say even more automatic, but it goes deeper, right? Whereas um otherwise it can be forced or shallow or all those things because you don't
Sure.
have the right structure to take it in, so
Well, along the same lines, it's useful to appreciate that breathing, is a muscular. It's probably the most primal muscular, uh, thing that we do to be alive. It's a muscular act. It doesn't happen by nothing. You got to create that vacuum,
yeah.
through your diaphragm to allow that air to be sucked in. That's a muscular effort there. So I in my way of helping people, I help them to see that breathing is uh, such an important thing, and to one thing I like to do with breathing is when they're walking, I find you might find this useful, is I have them divide sometimes their with right heel strike, the right shoulder goes back, and to try to even breathe more on the right diaphragm as the right foot heel. I'm not saying you have to do it for very long, but sometimes it's just nice to feel like you have the control of it helps the muscular uh, coordination of the diaphragm, which can be useful for people who are trying to make it stronger yet.
Yeah, interesting. So what about fire?
So fire is the nervous system, like I was alluded to earlier.
Right.
Um, and just like fire is the most ethereal of the 4 elements, right? So it goes from density to lightness.
Mm.
The sun, fire is furthest away from terra firma, Earth, right? So it's the nervous system that flows throughout all our body, but just as the feet bones collect earth down at the bottom, the brain clicks fire up at the top, right? So things good for fire, such things as meditation, uh, having our ideals in the human condition. I believe that, there's the ways these things play out is, you know, our ability to generate high ideals is a fire part of the human condition. Does that make sense on some level? And that's where this four element way of thinking becomes very spiritual, very psychological, if you will. And it's worth mentioning that, the only way that the four elements really plays out in people's lives today is through astrology. I don't want to throw another whole different part of it, but, astrology is where the four elements, people know their sign. And, some people don't know that if they're they're an Aquarius sign, they're an air sign, but the four elements play out in that way. But my point in bringing that up, I don't know what quite why is, uh, but the fire is your idealism. It's your spiritual sensibility. It's your ability to be creative, to have new ideas. That's a fire part of us, uh, and I think it's important to have ways to focus our ideals on our ideals, and I don't think we do that enough. Today we're very shallow. We bring that fire principle into ourselves with all that flicker of TikTok and other fiery images, and uh, nature's fire. It's images that brings us into our lives, which stimulates our consciousness. So it's worth appreciating that what gets stimulated into our fire organs, our eyes, creates much of our consciousness, doesn't it? We're inside, we have an indoor consciousness because we're stimulated by indoor things. When we're outside, we feel different because the fire that we're taking in, the images, the things around us that we see are a whole different set of stimulations that creates a different consciousness. So fire is our consciousness, our ability to stay positive and idealistic.
And to create, I think.
And to be creative, exactly.
And if you look also at the nervous system as also being the autonomic nervous system,
Sure, it has its own yin yang divisions as well.
Fire could be the sympathetic, but you can't heal if you're not balanced with the autonomic nervous.
Well, what I would say here is, just for the fun of it, is I would say that within the fire of your nervous system in general, they play out as uh, in a lot of ways. The sympathetic and the parasympathetic are this yin yang that you know goes further as how the nervous system. So there's this other parts of the nervous system that might be the earth part, where that might be the spinal nerves. The cerebrum, actually, in my way of thinking, the cerebrum is the fire. It's our free, and then and even within our cerebrum we have the prefrontal cortex, which is the fire of the fire of the fire. That makes us really who we are as humans. And then you got the parietal lobes, that would be the water, and then the air is the temporal, and then the oxygen. But then it even goes further than that into what you were describing. So these four elements, they keep holistically patterning into our body, mind, and spirit. It's pretty amazing when you start categorizing things, which isn't just a feeble exercise. It does lead to practical applications. I believe it's worth mentioning that.
So, Dr. Walsdorf, where did this all begin for you? I mean, 40 years ago, you became a chiropractor.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Well, how it all began, is that your question? How did how to get underneath my skin, so to speak?
What made you feel attracted to this?
Yeah,
Why?
that might be a better way. Yeah, I was always a natural guy. My mom always called me, her natural whatever. I would walk to a different drummer, she would say, something like that. And I was always into nature, and I went to a natural science school up here in Syracuse, SUNY, Environmental Science and Forestry. And while I was there more than 40 years ago, I took a course in astrology. I was like, young 18, 19-year-old.
Yeah.
And it felt good to me, talking about these fire, air, water, and earth. I was going to, natural science school, and it just resonated with me, and it stuck with me. And I've never let go of it. Not that I'm an astrologer in any way. I respect it, and I do feel there's something to it. But even beyond that, even if you don't believe in astrology, there's something about that ancient wisdom that I touched, 45 years ago, that I still feel
Mhm.
I can't help but honor and feel privileged, because nobody much is talking about it, that
Right.
I noticed. And it's a privilege to have that opportunity to, but at the same time, it's a very heavy lift, because nobody much is aware of it. And I hope I didn't talk too metaphysical, but my goal was to make it practical, and it's very practical if you find ways
Yeah.
to approach
I mean,
it.
like you're describing it also metaphorically, which really helps people learn things, right? So
Cool.
if you envision it this way, and you're a visual person, a lot of
Yeah.
are, it does, yeah, it's like a message that you remember, so no, I much appreciate our conversation.
Nice.
Uh,
Thank you.
We've actually run out of time, so I
Okay.
would say, well, where can people get your book, or
Oh, okay. Thank you for asking. Oh, well, yeah. Well, the best place to find me is at fourelementdoctor.com. FOUR, doctor, DOCTOR, uh, fourelementdoctor.com. Uh, and they could, you know, uh, I have I'm developing, I should say, a free self-renewal system based upon these four elements, where and I'm trying to create this four element institute where I can do research. So, uh, so I'm giving this for free, and I'm hoping that as people get uh, well using it, they might consider, helping me research it. I really
right.
do. I do believe it needs to be researched. I have it in my mind. I have ways that I would like this to be applied toward giving young people uh, an awareness of these four elements and putting into our education, tell people, young people and ourselves, to eat healthier once we understand that food
Mhm.
embodies these principles as well, these life positive principles. But that's another whole story. There's how nutrition fits into it in a deeper way. But fourelementdoctor.com is a good way of accessing some of my things that I offer. I'm on YouTube as a four element doctor as well. So I'm around. I'm getting out there more and more. My team is getting me out there. So
Excellent.
there you go.
Okay, well, thank you very much for spending the time together, and
Yes, I appreciate your
hopefully
time.
it will reach more people interested.
Thank you so much for your time. Bye-bye.
Thank you for joining us at the Healers Café. If you haven't already done so, please like, comment, and subscribe with notifications on, as I post a new podcast every Wednesday with tons of useful information and tips for natural healing that you won't want to miss.